Hi everyone, my name is Eliza. I am a grad student in psychology and a former teacher. I'm here to talk to you about stats, today's measures of central tendency, and I'm really excited about it because I love stats and I want to share the knowledge. My videos are not always going to be pretty, but they're focused on conceptual understanding, and I hope they help you in your stats and research methods classes. So I'll start with a broad overview about what measures of central tendency are conceptually. So essentially, it's going to be one value or number that best represents your data set or group of numbers as a whole. And that value may or may not actually be one of the numbers in your data set, depending on which measure of central tendency it is, and what the numbers are in your set. Another way to think of this is that it's a typical or representative value for the data set. And then finally, you'll often hear that it's the center of the distribution of the data set. So I'm drawing a little normal curve here. You can see the line right down the middle. That would be kind of the center of your distribution in a simple example. We'll talk more about when that might be more complicated in another video. So another benefit of measures of central tendency is that it kind of collapses the data set down into one value, which allows you to, at a very basic level, compare two different groups. And it makes a data set more interpretable, because if you have a huge number of values within your set, it's hard to really detect patterns without kind of having a way to summarize the data set in different ways. And this is one of the ways that we do that, to get a sense of our data as a whole and compare it to other groups. Okay, let's take a look at an example to illustrate why this is important. Imagine we're doing a study on depression. There's a new depression treatment where scores range from 1 to 5 on depression, 1 being low, 5 being high. We have a treatment group and a control group. For simplicity, let's just pretend there's only one time point measuring the depression after the treatment. That's not really realistic, but don't worry about that right now. So here's some sample results, and here, as we can see, the treatment group has very clearly lower rates of depression with all 1s and 2s. There's no even overlap between the numbers, and the control group is much higher in depression, which is what we would expect if the treatment was effective. But in real life, data doesn't usually look like this. So it might look a little bit more like this. This is still simple, but now we can see the treatment group. Some people seem to have been helped. There's a 1 and a couple 2s, but there's also a 4. There's somebody who's still quite high on depression. And in the control group, we have a 4, but then a couple 2s, a couple 3s. So it's less clear. And without a measure of central tendency to collapse into one value, it's very hard to compare the groups and detect patterns. And that is why we need measures of central tendency. So there are 3 measures of central tendency that you're going to need to know about. The first is the mean, which is the average, the median, which is the middle number from a data set, and finally the mode, which is the most common number in the data set. And you could calculate all 3 of these for any data set, but generally there will be one best one to use depending on your data. In the next videos, I'll tell you about calculating them, examples, and when we're going to use each. How do you know which one to use? What are the pros and cons of each one? Because they all tell you something different. Thanks for listening.